ability to accomplish any task or goal is directly related to your ability to find what you need, when you need it. And we, when I wrote Taming the Paper Tiger, it was all about paper. Well, and it was hard enough to organize paper, and a lot of companies never learned to do that because they said, oh, well, we're going digital, so we don't have to worry about that. Well, all digital does is creates a bigger, faster, hidden mess.
Sure.
So here's an interesting thing. The bank tells you, they almost force you to go paperless.
Yep.
You are subject to an audit for 7 years. Can you go back to the bank online and get your documents from 7 years ago? No, you cannot. And you can go back to the bank and get it for pay. But if you've switched banks and you don't happen to remember what your account number was, and that's one of the things that's happening with millennials now who've never printed out anything. And if they're not organizing their digital, they can actually lose money. Like if they're employed by a company and they have investments and then they change companies, that information is transferred through their physical mailing address, not through their email or anything like that. Well, if they don't report their new address to the new employer, in Florida, for example, it's 3 years. In 3 years, that fund's unclaimed. So what we do with Taming the Paper Tiger in the digital age is help people figure out what you need to keep in paper and what you need to keep in digital. Or in the case of financial services, you can have a financial services company keep that for you, so you don't have to. But it's really important, and it's getting more and more important as this gets complicated. So we have what we call the 7 information management questions. Every time an employee can't find information, it's because one of those 7 questions hasn't been addressed, which is, what information do we need to keep? In what form? For how long? Who's responsible for filing it? Who needs access to it? How do we find it? And how is it backed up? And every single time, many times I've asked people, oh, I couldn't find this. Every single time it's become one of those questions that hasn't been answered. Now, here's the good news. People look at that and say, oh my God, this would take forever to do all this. Well, here's the principle you apply here. Today's mail is tomorrow's pile. Research shows that 80%, what we used to say 80% of what we keep, we don't use. I think now it's much closer. Perry Marshall is one of my good coaches, and he says it's more like 95.5 now. So going back and organizing all that old stuff, don't do that now. When we do a total office transformation, we tell people, hey, we're going to ignore what you did in the past because research shows you're not going to use most of it anyway. We're not going to throw it away. We're just going to set it aside for now until we've put what we call the magic 6 in place. And then once the magic 6 is in place, everything goes there. So you've stopped the problem. And it's the same with digital. Photographs are a good example. People have tens of thousands of photographs. And unfortunately, a lot of families are going to be really sad when people die because other family members are not going to have access to those because they're not organized in any kind of way whatsoever. There are many tools that you can do that. I have a 92-year-old aunt who's in a nursing home in Texas, and they just bought, I can't even remember the name of the tool, but it's a picture frame that we can put in her room, and we can send the pictures to her because we would print, we would take a long time to print them out and then mail them to her, and she wouldn't get them. And now with COVID, she couldn't open them and all that. And so this is just awesome. So what our consultants do is help people figure out what tool they will use. And that's the real key. Marie Kondo, her methodology is about what you should do. We get a lot of Marie Kondo dropouts. We don't tell people what they should do. We ask people what they will do in order to get to that vision we want. And we always use our 5 steps. 1, state your vision. Proverbs says, without a vision, the people perish. And that vision changes. And that's what's happening out of COVID now. That's the good thing that's happening out of COVID, is people have some time to think about what's really meaningful. Before we're kind of like gerbils on a wheel. We're just going as fast as we can, as fast as we can. We don't have time to think about it. Well, now we've got to go back. Okay, what what is really important? So that's state your vision. Then number 2, identify your obstacles. What have you tried that didn't work? Or what are you afraid of? Who's preventing you from being successful? Or what might prevent you from being successful? And step 3 is commit your resources. It's like, and resources mean time. So one of the first questions we always ask people is, how much time are you willing to invest in solving this over what period of time? When do you want to get to that goal? And I years ago, I remember I had somebody she was a home-based business and she was a writer, and she had a new boyfriend. Her house was a huge mess. And the boyfriend was coming. She called me, she says, can you work all weekend? Because I don't want this person to come to my house. So he's like, okay, we worked, 14, 16-hour days getting it done because that was important. For companies, one of our best ways to work is to work on for a year-long basis, because in the first 90 days, we can get the majority of those 7 information management questions in place. So we've stopped the problem. Then through the year, we're addressing the different things that come up. Somebody leaves the company, it's conference time, it's vacation time, it's tax time, it's whatever. And so then the rest of the year, you're kind of working out those systems. And while we're working with you then, we can train an employee to take over what we're doing. So you're not hiring us forever, you're hiring us for 1 year. And at the end of that 1 year, you have a totally new capability that you've never had before, that you will have always. And Andrea, I know you have some statistics about that are, I think, appropriate to bring up here, because people think, okay, we're hiring you, you're going to tidy up, but then we're going to have to do this over and over. No, we're not tidying up. We're creating a system.